Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. My name is Bob Powell, and sitting next to me is my co-host tonight, Patrick Sherrill. Patrick is one of my admins over on the Facebook page, and he helps me out quite a bit. Later on tonight, we're going to be hosting a roundtable discussion of sorts with Truth is Viral admins here in northern Michigan, where we're enjoying this lovely fire. Finally, Old Man Winter is dead. And from southern Michigan, the man that's in charge of the Truth is Viral forum at ttiv.forummotion.com, Jimmy, is going to join us. And ding dong. Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. My name is Bob Powell, and sitting next to me is my co-host tonight, Patrick Sherrill. Well, we got to do something about that. That's not going to work. Yeah, there's the problem right there. Okay. Mute. No problem. Okay, so tonight's guest is Joe Bennett. Joe is the Pennsylvania State Coordinator for Operation American Spring, and he's going to bring us up to date with the latest doings. First, let's go back just a little bit and talk about this Operation American Spring from its inception and how I've covered it. The very first episode of The Truth is Viral that I produced concerning Operation American Spring was published on January 14th. And it caused quite a stir because I showed how Major General Paul Vallely had co-authored a paper with avowed Temple of Satanist leader Colonel Michael Aquino back in the day. They had authored this paper called Mind War. And what they did, or what they posited, the theory that they posited, was how to use modern technology to influence crowds, not just unruly crowds that you might find on a street, but entire populations. And I have major reservations placing the safety of people that look to me for advice, for what to do. I don't want to put their lives in jeopardy unnecessarily. And I definitely don't want to put their lives in the hands of a man that co-authored a paper on how to mind screw people in crowds with a Satanist. Okay. Now, the next week, Colonel Harry Riley, the personality that's in charge of Operation American Spring, he would say that he's not in charge, but he's the one everybody looks to for answers when it comes to Operation American Spring. But he appeared on the Pete Santilli show, and Pete asked him if Major General Vallely was involved with Operation American Spring, and the colonel said no. He said no quite forcefully, and that reinforced a one-word response that I got from his media coordinator when I asked the same question, which was no. So taking into account what I'm now being told, that Major General Paul Vallely has no part of Operation American Spring, I decided to switch my stance and support the effort, because something needs to be done, folks. Even liberal constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley says that we're in a constitutional crisis. Benghazi, the AP scandal, IRS targeting of Tea Party groups. These are all impeachable scandals. And nobody's even talking about the worst one of all. When Obama decided that he has the power of life over death, that with the stroke of his pen, he can circumvent the Fifth Amendment and take somebody's life without even so much as charging them with a crime in a court of law. He did that with New Mexico resident Anwar al-Awlaki and North Carolina-born Samir Khan. And 2 weeks later, for no apparent reason whatsoever, Obama droned al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son and a bunch of other teenagers as they were enjoying a meal of goat and hummus on the side of a road. I think Obama was afraid that this 16-year-old boy who had just been snatched up out of a Denver mall might grow up and take a little bit of vengeance. Now, that's a fair assumption. We're getting an incoming transmission. Can you tell I'm a Star Trek geek? Better be important. Okay, not that important. Okay, it can wait. And we can also turn the phone off because from past experience that probably caused a little bit of electronic interference in my microphone, and it was probably very annoying. Okay, so yeah, we've got a president that with a stroke of his pen, he can just pick up his phone and order somebody else to murder an American citizen without ever charging them with a crime in a court of law. Now, Anwar al-Awlaki, I understand, because a lot of people think, and I think, that he was a CIA asset to begin with. They don't want CIA assets testifying in a court of law. So, yeah, he's going to be taken out. Now, I think that he was taken out not only because they didn't want him spilling his guts over what really happened on 9/11, but also as a test case for this new power that Obama has usurped for himself. You know, who's going to miss a brown-skinned terrorist like Anwar al-Awlaki? Who cares about that man's Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution to face his accusers, to be charged with a crime before life, liberty, or property can be taken from you? Who cares about him? He was a scumbag terrorist, right? Well, since al-Awlaki was assassinated, CIA Chief John Brennan and Department of Justice Chief Eric Holder and Barack Obama have all been asked if they would use that power domestically, and all three of them have refused to say that they would not use that power domestically. In other words, they're leaving that option on the table. To drone attack an American citizen inside the continental United States without ever having charged that person with a crime. Doesn't anybody see how dangerous that is? Even if you're a Democrat, do you want a Republican president to have that power? Nate Wessler from the ACLU was with the National Security Project. They specialized in the drone assassinations being conducted by Obama. He was on this very program last year, and he called Obama judge, jury, and executioner. Now, for a lawyer for the ACLU to say that about a sitting Democratic president, you know that something's wrong with this picture. James Madison, in Federalist Paper number 43, said that when the powers of the executive, legislative, and judiciary are all in the hands of one man, then that is the very definition of tyranny. So yeah, that's why I say that on September 30th, 2011, the constitutional republic that was the United States fell and was replaced by a tyranny, because that is the day that Barack Obama assumed the powers of legislative, judiciary, and executive when he ordered the murder of Samir Khan and Anwar al-Awlaki and al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman. That little boy never did anything to anybody. And Obama murdered him with a stroke of his pen. So yeah, we're in a lot of trouble, and we've got to do something. That's why, once we got that connection with Satanism out of the way, I was in support of American Spring, and I have been. And if it wasn't for my wife being so ill, I would be in Washington D.C. to cover the event one way or another, and I would have been producing more episodes to promote it, because like I said, I believe that we've got to do something. And the people are ready. We saw what happened at the Bundy Ranch. The government came in with their dogs and their automatic weapons and their tasers. And a group of brave American patriots stood up and said, no more. That could have all been easily handled by simply filing a lien against against Cliven Bundy's property and collecting against his estate when he died. But no, Harry Reid had to send in the Bureau of Land Management SWAT team, because he couldn't wait. His back alley deal with the Chinese for that power plant was waiting. And now the FBI is going after those patriots that were armed at the Bundy Ranch. According to WorldNet Daily, the FBI is working up a case against people that they think were targeting Bureau of Land Management agents, the snipers that they had up in the hills, with their own weapons. I don't know how they're ever going to prove that any particular agent was targeted, because unless they had somebody looking through a Patriot scope, how can you prove that crosshairs were ever laid on a federal agent? You can't. So they'll lie, and they'll find out who these guys are, and they'll SWAT team them in the middle of the night, and they'll probably kill them. It's the way this government works. Let's remember Ruby Ridge and Waco. Randy Weaver could have been arrested in town, but instead they chose to shoot his 14-year-old son and shoot his mother shoot Randy Weaver's wife, Vicky, in the face while she's holding her baby. Lon Horiuchi did that. He was a FBI sniper. And you know what happened after Ruby Ridge did? Was Lon Horiuchi disciplined in any way, even though the government was found liable and had to pay Randy Weaver and his family $1 million for the murder of his wife? Was Lon Horiuchi disciplined? No, he was not disciplined. They sent him to Waco, Texas. And when the Branch Davidians were running out of the building with their clothes on fire, skin melting off of their arms, Lon Horiuchi was taking aim and blowing them away. He said no shots were fired, but in the investigation, the congressional investigation afterwards, They found their shell casings. So I think he's probably enjoying his retirement somewhere, unless they want to bring him out of retirement for a special hit on the Bundy Ranch. But let's keep those patriots in our prayers, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to be SWAT teamed in the middle of the night, and God help them. And speaking of God, before we go any further, I'd just like to say a little prayer, because what we're going to discuss tonight is extremely, extremely important, folks. This is life and death. And I don't know about you, but I'd like to have a little divine guidance. So let's do this. Father, I come to you as a sinner, asking that you would wipe away my sins and hear my prayer. Father, use my mouth to ask the questions that need to be asked. With the ultimate goal of making sure that what I tell my viewers to do is the right thing. Help us come to the truth of this matter, so that the people that are watching this program right now can make an informed decision as to what they want to do this coming May 16th, when Operation American Spring descends on Washington, D.C. Thank you, Father, for all the blessings that you've given this country. So sorry that we wasted it. But Lord, we want to come to you now in repentance as a nation, so you can turn away your vengeance and save us. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. We'll try not to do too much of that tonight. But we've got like I said, we're in trouble. We've got a problem. And, I see on the internet, people are angry. They see police officers beating on people that don't need to be beaten on. And they're angry. They see federal agents SWAT teaming people the wrong people. Shooting 80-year-old men in their beds. Firing on elderly Marines. There was a elderly black Marine. Hey, Axel, how you doing, buddy? He didn't want to take his medication, so they busted down his door and shot him with bean bags and a shotgun. That's all she wrote for him. You doing, buddy? Don't knock over my drink, bud. This is Axel. He's a good dog. Axel, say hello to the world. So, we're going to talk tonight to Joe Bennett. He's the Pennsylvania team leader for Operation American Spring. And we'll get the latest scoop here. Just let me start my Skype and we'll give him a call. Most Ricky Tick.
Hello.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Hi, it's Bob Powell from The Truth is Viral. How you doing tonight, bro?
Very good. How are you
Okay.
doing, buddy?
Oh, pretty good. I was talking to my viewers just now about, the evolution of my coverage of Operation American Spring. It started out kind of rocky with the revelation that Major General Paul Vallely had ties with a avowed Satanist back in the day, writing a paper together on how to mind control large crowds. So, that gave me a pause to want to cover American Spring in a positive light. But then the next week when Colonel Riley came out and said that General Vallely had no part of Operation American Spring, well, then I did a 180 because, as I've spent the last 20 minutes or so talking to my folks, we're in a lot of trouble and we've got to do something. And a peaceful march on Washington D.C. it sounds like a dream come true, especially if we can generate the kind of numbers that we saw during the 2 million bikers ride to D.C. There were 1.8 million bikers in Washington D.C. that day. Now, if we can generate those kind of numbers with boots on the ground, people that are not just going to roar through the nation's capital, but are willing to stay there for a while until, the goals of the protest are met, well, that's to me is very attractive. And first, Joe, why don't you tell me how you got involved with Operation American Spring? How did you become the Pennsylvania State Coordinator?
I had heard a little bit about Operation American Spring, just really more or less mentioned a couple places, didn't really know that much about it, and then a friend of mine told me about it, and he gave me a pretty good earful, and it seemed like the very thing that for probably 15 years I've been hoping would happen, that we as conservative, Christians, Americans, freedom-loving people, people against the killing of unborn babies, whatever the issues might be, that we would get together, we would link arms on all of these issues and say there's clearly a dark and sinister force in this country that wants to destroy our Constitution, take away our liberties, confiscate our property, and use that to subsidize their re-elections, their gathering of power, under themselves. And when I heard about this and heard the details, I checked into it and contacted our state leader. I sent her a few things that I had written over the years and asked her if there was anything I could do more at the national level, not so much at the state, but willing to help at the state level as well. And she passed it on, and they kind of liked what I had written, and asked if I asked, and she said they'd need some people to do things like this, to talk to some folks and get the information out there. And I said, I would absolutely love that. And then the lady that was in charge of the Pennsylvania organization wanted to she had to step back for a number of family reasons, and asked if I would kind of co-lead, and then asked if I would take over the leadership. So I'm kind of coming late to a party, kind of late, but I tell you, this event is everything that I've been hoping for. I think it is the kind of the culmination of all the illegal activity of our government. It's people finally waking up. I always say that Obama is the gift that keeps on giving. I've never seen people more motivated, more upset, and better educated about what our Constitution says and about the principles that created it, and about the hopes that we have for restoring our republic. So I'm excited that this is the event. And as far as the general coming or not coming or involved or getting involved later on. We are certainly an organization. It's a grassroots organization. There are going to be a lot of imperfect people there, and if somebody wants to stand up with us, and I can't say that there aren't going to be bad people in every organization, just like there are bad people in our families and our businesses that are sitting next to us in the pews at church. But this isn't about any one guy, and if General Vallely decides to get involved again, it's not going to be about him. If he wants to stand shoulder to shoulder with us, we're still not going to, and I'm not sure about the thing that you talked about. I hadn't heard that, didn't know anything about that, but this is about the Constitution. And anyone that shows up, this is about the Constitution. We understand that when we are free from tyranny, we are free to live our lives, to kneel before God, to follow our own hearts, whether we believe in God or not. But as a country founded by Christians, we are a free people, and people are welcome to worship as they please in our country and do as they please. And there are going to be Democrats that are going to join us that have voted for Obama and pushed the leftist agenda, and I think they've had enough of what they've seen coming down the pipe, and I think they realize the error of their way. So I'd say anybody who cares about our country and about freedom and the Constitution, Washington, D.C., May 16th is the place to be. And if you don't know, if your listeners aren't familiar with Operation American Spring, there's a wonderful website, OAS2014.com. And you can find a ton of links, tons of information. And straight down towards the bottom in the middle, there's a document you can click on. That is the packet of information that was delivered to Congress. First, it was delivered, in person, by hand, and then I think eventually they kind of pulled back on these boxes of packets being delivered, and they've been mailed to them or delivered through other individuals. But it's a very interesting read, and you can see the crimes that have been committed against our country, and it is just the tip of the iceberg. But it is a good, healthy list, and certainly sufficient enough to ask for the resignation or the impeachment of this handful of individuals.
Right. I'm looking at that list right now. It's a 33-count indictment against the Obama administration. And I guess one question that I have, part of the plan is to get people like Ted Cruz and who else?
Well, it's a request for anybody. If there's anybody in Congress, anybody in the Senate,
Ted Cruz
that actually takes their oath seriously, please step up, cross the line, and stand with us for the Constitution.
Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, and ultra conservatives like that to stand up and do something about this. But here's my concern. Okay, first of all, have any of these people responded to you in a positive way, saying that if you get enough people in here and you show us that you can shut down Washington D.C., then we'll do what you ask. We'll impeach Barack Obama. We'll send the master-at-arms over to the White House with an armed guard, and we'll haul that son of a bitch right down to the House of Congress, and we will impeach him on the spot. Now, that's what contempt of Congress is.
Absolutely.
Back in the day, when somebody was held in contempt of Congress, the master-at-arms would hold that person in the hall of Congress until the questions were answered. But here we are almost 2 years later. Eric Holder's still in contempt of Congress. Nothing's ever happened to him. But anyway, have any of these legislators responded to you positively in any way? Talking about, we're with you.
Yes, and who I do not know. I do know that there are people who have stepped up and that have had a very favorable reaction. The colonel would know better those things. That poor gentleman has been going day and night. He's 78 years old, and he is a trooper. He is some kind of guy, but he has been doing 5, 6, 7 different interviews a day. And he got to the point where his voice, his throat was just getting sore and swollen, and the doctor said, I think he should take off a week. Yeah, he's not taking off a week, but he certainly needed a few days rest over the weekend.
I don't doubt his commitment to this at all, but we've got a lot of things to think about that I don't think have been have been thought about or addressed. Like, for example, continuity of government. This isn't Egypt. This isn't Libya. This isn't Syria. This is the United States of America. We have a vast nuclear arsenal. We are arguably the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, and without somebody in charge with their finger on the nuclear trigger, that makes us a target.
Absolutely.
So let's say that Barack Obama is hauled into Congress. Who is in charge? Joe Biden? I don't think so.
I think we have to look at that. I don't think, and the beauty of the United States is because we do have separation of powers, which has been ignored. And that is the question. We think we've all thought about what a nightmare that would be if Joe Biden was put in that position. You know what? They have muddied the waters. They have committed the crimes, and they have corrupted our system. So what choice do we have? Do we say, well, okay, our hands are tied at this point? Do we do nothing? At this point, the Constitution matters, and if it means we take out, 2/3 of the Congress and the Senate, if those are the people that are destroying our Constitution, I think we have, at some point, we have to have an ounce of self-preservation. And we have to be allowed to get our own house in order. And I would imagine that if there was some sort of attack at some point, there are plenty of, God-fearing, Constitution-loving, competent, men and women, and even those that are retired, that would certainly come right back into office and or be willing to step up to be appointed by the states, which would be a beautiful thing if we got back to the original intent, where the senators were elected or appointed by the individual states and not elected at large, which was a leftist movement, of course, and it certainly has destroyed this concept that our founders, had. But I'm not so much afraid of that as I am of us continuing to do nothing. And if we get to the point where we're afraid to break a few eggs, then we will never fix this nightmare. And this is what they want. They want us to sit back, I think, confused and, fearful of this eventuality and that outcome. And at this point, all I know is that it is the Constitution they want to destroy. And if we sit back and allow them to continue down this road, we'll have nothing to try to, preserve. It'll be gone.
Right.
There won't be any remnant left.
We're talking about breaking a few eggs. Well, we're not talking about breaking a few eggs. We're talking about, life and death situations. And, I'm not the only person that's been concerned about this. In recent weeks, during a 7 to 10 day period, Operation American Spring lost 8 of its state coordinators. They just up and quit. Richard Hall, a good friend of Colonel Harry Riley, resigned from OAS. He was in charge of volunteers, and he resigned because he found some FBI moles in the organization.
That's certainly going to be the case, though. There are, and I know a lot of gentlemen that are, in the military. I know guys that are Homeland Security. I've known some FBI guys, and I know people who know a lot more of those guys than I do. And what they tell us is the majority of these guys, and it's been my experience with police officers as well, those guys are us. They're on our side. They're with us. You are always going to find these destructive, treasonous SOBs, in the ranks. So would be more than happy to go and arrest people who are actually demanding that the Constitution be obeyed. Those who are actually trying to enforce the Constitution and force Congress to obey the law. When we enforce the law, they would be more than happy to say, oh yeah, I'll be used to go ahead and ignore the oath that I swore and go and arrest those people. And that's my point. We can't sit back and be afraid of individuals like that. We have to stand up and say, listen, I have never sworn an oath, but I am certainly willing to give my life for my country. And that is, there are a lot of guys who are willing to do that as well. And just because there's going to be dangers and risks, look at what our founders went through when they stood up against their king.
Well, I can appreciate.
They died and they suffered horribly.
I can appreciate that, but it just seems like Operation American Spring is losing support all over the place. Sam Bushman from the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association said that that organization withdrew their support because Operation American Spring has no plan.
Well, there's a plan for the Constitution.
Right, but
it's as simple as what the leftists do. We're going to get people, and we're going to lose people, and we're going to get a lot more people, and we're going to lose some people. That's just how it is. That's just how it is.
Well, right. However, if you've got...
There are times, every day, every single day, people call their congressman and their senator. They have organizations and they have groups that show up. They have meetings that these gentlemen and women are invited to. They have protests and rallies on the mall and all over Washington, D.C., and they demand that our representatives disobey their oath to the Constitution. The enumerated powers, plus for the few more amendments added to that, are the very limit of the things the federal government is allowed to do. They show up and demand that they put their hands into our pockets, that they ignore the law and they advance policies and principles and institutions that are illegal. They demand that, and nobody gets upset with that. But if we show up and demand that the Constitution be obeyed, somehow, well, listen, that's just not as clean and as crystal clear as it ought to be, so we shouldn't do it. At this point, I don't know what else to do. And if you have a better plan, I said put it on the table. And if all of these people have decided, well, I have this complaint or I have that complaint, well, it's not a perfect world.
Okay.
If standing up for the Constitution is somehow not worth these risks and these trials and these individuals who may have a problem today, and maybe they won't even have a problem tomorrow. Maybe they'll come back and go, oh, now I get it. Okay, I see what you're doing. You're right. This was clearly worth the effort, despite whatever risks or whatever naysayers there might be. But if not this, then what?
Okay,
what is
well,
the alternative? What do we do in place of this if we don't do this?
Okay, you've got all these people in Washington, D.C., okay? They're there for a week, and they're not going anywhere, okay? Let's make the assumption that they are absolutely committed to this cause, and they're there for a week. Washington, D.C. is shut down. All the networks are covering 1 million people on the Washington Mall. But the federal government is not going to budge. Barack Obama is not going anywhere. What then?
Well, let's just say there's under 1 million possible scenarios afterwards. We go home, or we stay for 2 weeks, and then we go home, or we stay for 3 weeks and we go home, or we stay for 3 days, we go home, we come back a month later, and we stay for 6 months. Who really knows? The point is, if we show up, and if we are able to get the message out, there's a very important fact. Imagine right now that, and this has happened, there are people discussing more seriously, and including Democrats, including lifelong hardcore liberals that are still liberal. They're talking about impeaching Obama. And except that if this were any other president at any other time in the history of our world, this man would be, or whoever the individual was, would have been impeached by now, by the looks of it, over and over and over again on a multitude of issues. So it cannot possibly be such a big concern that a group of people will get together, will talk about the Constitution, will finally educate people about exactly what country they live in. We hear all the time, the left does not talk about the Constitution. They do not talk about the enumerated powers. They do not talk about the limits that were put on government, about how our founders feared that government that they had created. They don't understand at all the principles that the Constitution rests upon. As beautiful as the Constitution is, it is virtually almost nothing compared to the principles that it is a reflection of. We don't know what those principles are. We don't know the arguments of our founders of why they settled on the Constitution that they did, why they went from the Articles of Confederation. We have no idea about the debates that happened afterwards, what the Kentucky Resolution was. We have no idea. So if the best thing that comes out of this is only that people start to get a glimpse of the country that they live in, isn't that worth the effort? If we are actually the wind at the back of the individuals who are talking about impeaching this man for clear crimes against our Constitution,
right? Well, Joe,
crimes, then that would be worth the effort as well, I think, and anything in between.
Yeah, I think impeaching him definitely would be worth the effort, but I don't think that he's going to let us do that. See, Harry Reid has already labeled people that think like us as domestic terrorists.
Well, of course, your enemies are not going to say nice things about you.
No,
and you stop. The Germans didn't like us if we go home. No.
And under the National Defense Authorization Act and the authorization for the use of military force, that gives Obama the right to kill us. Okay.
Right.
Now,
if we had done this every 20 years, the last 100 years, we would not be where we are right now. We have been negligent. We have done nothing for 100 years as they've advanced their cause. And so the dangers are much higher. The damage has been much more significant than anybody ever imagined it would be. Obama is not the beginning of this. He is the closer. He is the cleaner. He is the guy that comes and puts a bullet in the back of our head
right.
and then hides our bodies in shallow graves. And that is no reason to not fight him now. And it's only going to be worse in 5 years.
What I'm worried about is that they're going to use this Operation American Spring to double down on that domestic terrorist thing. Maybe put a few agent provocateurs in the crowd to open fire on somebody. Or
I'm so glad you brought that up. Colonel Riley has repeated over and over and over again, nobody is to come armed. That goes against the laws of D.C. We are not interested. Even if D.C. said, oh, yeah, you can bring your gun, we're not bringing guns.
Okay,
nobody is to bring any sort of a gun.
Right. Now, I have seen Colonel Riley say that people should leave their weapons in one of the contiguous states like Virginia. Now, there's also talk of a large Marine group that's supposed to be there, and various militias in Maryland and in Virginia as a so-called second wave of patriots that would come in and take care of business, I suppose, if the federal government opens fire on these protesters. And
you've heard Colonel Riley talk about that's part of his plan. That's on the website. You've heard him talk about and promote that. And do you believe that that's actually something that he wants?
Well, whether he wants it or not,
it's not something he's encouraging.
No, well, whether it's something he wants or whether it's something that he's encouraging or not, he is talking about having these armed people outside of Washington D.C. Now,
I think what he's saying is if you do bring a weapon, because there are a lot of people who are going to be staying in Virginia, and you can have a gun in Virginia, you can be open carry in Virginia. And he said if you want to do that, he's not going to tell you not to bring your weapon to Virginia, but you leave it in Virginia. It's how you word it. It's how you look at it. It depends on how paranoid you are about, these bad people doing bad things. What he said over and over again is that there is, and I trust this. I trust that there are enough. If you look at the Tea Party events, base your hopes. Envision what the Tea Party has done. When they show up, they walk away from these parks and they are cleaner than they left them. So we are going to have a massive amount of people, and what Colonel Riley said over and over and over again is that there will be a million cell phones, cameras, individuals that are watching closely. The security people, their whole goal is as soon as something gets out of line, you turn your camera on, you videotape it to show that this is not us. If there is somebody causing trouble, we did not ask them to be there. And we are going to be the ones that are opposing those people. We will oppose them. And the request for everybody, and I trust this. I guess I have a little bit more, maybe I'm foolishly optimistic, but I look at the people that have shown up at these conservative events. We do not cause trouble. We are not leftists. There are those individuals that do. If every person brought a gun, I still don't think there would be violence.
Well, I'm not worried about the regular patriots that would come. I could walk around Washington, D.C. all day long with a gun and not shoot anybody.
Sure.
I'm worried about agent provocateurs, people that want to stir up trouble on behalf of the Obama administration to give them excuse to call us domestic terrorists and SWAT team us in the middle of the night.
Right, and Colonel Riley's addressed that, and he said, what are you going to do? There are always going to be troublemakers, and they're going to try to make the lies, and we will have a million cameras that would prove that it was not us, that it was somebody else. He's going to make it very clear over and over and over again. If that is the thing that stops you from going, then you probably don't want to go. If you trust in the goodness of the vast populace of this country that would be there, the type of people who would be there, I'm guessing there's going to be 95% of them that are really solid people. There's going to be probably 4% more that probably have a really bad attitude and wish they could cause some trouble maybe. I think that might be a high number. And for those who actually do want to cause trouble, we're not going to give them a chance. I know I won't.
Okay.
If anybody wants to step out of line, I'm going to knock that person out cold before they can, do anything with their weapon or cause any sort of trouble. And of course, they're smarter than that if somebody wants to cause trouble. But this is a modern age. The technology will be broadcasting the actions of everybody, and if the vast majority of people there jump hard on top of whatever few individuals are causing trouble, then it'll be very clear who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
Okay, Joe, can you tell me where, I understand that there are going to be live streams from Washington, D.C. on May 16th and beyond. Can you tell my viewers where they can find these live streams so that if they can't get to Washington, D.C., they can at least watch and see what's going on?
I imagine that Colonel Riley, I'm hoping that we'll list some of those on the website so people want to watch. But I'd say Google it, look, and try to find your local blog radio like your own. Colonel Riley's been on just I can't even tell you how many he's been on. At some point, some of the the regular media is going to be there, and I think you're going to find the internet is hopefully flat out full of people streaming stuff, posting on their Facebook pages, YouTube videos. I think there will be just a humongous plethora of videos coming out of that location. I know myself, I intend on bringing a couple different cameras. Some older, smaller little digital things I have that I can just grab one out of any pocket, turn it on, and if there's trouble, or just to simply be able to record some of the things that are going on, some of the conversations. So, I think it's going to be much more transparent than you think. I think it's going to be much better behaved than you think. I think there's going to be a lot of really good people there, and we have one goal: is not to cause trouble. There's something that I really, really like about my country, is that we do things a certain way. We're a very civilized people, and I find that this is just as deep in my DNA as anything else. If I have a problem with somebody, I'm the kind of person to go right up to them.
Or what kind of...
I'll tell them what my complaints are, and I think that's what we're doing. We do that first. It may come to blows at some point down the road, and I think will not be because of us. It will only because the Democrats have brought the conflict to us. I'm sure of that. But we will at least have stood up one time, if not multiple times, but at least once, and stated very clearly, here are our demands, here are the crimes that you've committed against us, and here are the things we expect to happen. And we're going to do that peacefully, at least once. And that's what this is now.
Right. What kind of turnout are you expecting at Operation American Spring?
I wish we could say there'd be 30 million people there. I wish we could say there'll be 1 million people there. I think we'll just have to see. The media is terrified of this. This is the very thing the Democrats don't want. They want us to stay in our state so they cannot look in our eyes, or we can look at theirs. I would say there is something that's going to happen. We're going to show up with a howitzer, and we're going to put it to the forehead of every single person in the Congress and the Senate, and that weapon is called the Constitution. There's nothing more powerful that we can show up to D.C. with. And who knows how many people have heard about it up till now. I'm hoping that when May 16th hits, that will be the beginning of the message going out. The left is going to do everything they can to keep it from happening. Everything they can. But what do we know? Who really knows? All we know is that we're putting our faith in God. We're putting our faith in the goodness of the people of this country. And we're asking everybody to show up. If you love this country, show up in D.C. If you love the Constitution, show up in D.C. If you hate the crimes being committed against average individual, especially those people who are conservative, who've done nothing to anybody. They mow the grass, they pay their bills, they raise their kids well, they take care of themselves and those around them, and may have been targeted by the IRS. They want the oath that was sworn, that was never intended to be honored by these people in Congress. They want it to be obeyed, and somehow they're the bad guys. And Colonel Raleigh said it perfectly. He said he worked for the NSA, and at that time, the communist countries like the Soviet Union or China or Cuba or North Korea were the enemies. He said now he's the enemy, and people like him. Now that has to end, and that only ends if we stop being sheep, if we stand up and demand our rights, and I think we can do that all day long. And eventually, it will make a difference, and we will be the wind at the back of those honorable men in the House and the Senate who do want to do this, who do want to impeach them, who do want to hold people responsible for the oaths that they swore. And they want people to understand what the Constitution says and to know that it only limits the Article 1, Section 8 limits the government to doing 11 things. 6 or 7 of the 18 and 19 things have to do with defense. But if you group those together, that's one. It's defense. And there are 10 others, and they're simple, and they're basic. Post office, patent office, signing foreign treaties, regulate interstate commerce. They are breaking the law every day. And if you care about that, show up in D.C. If you can connect that to the socialism that is strangling our country to death, show up in D.C. If you have a problem with the federal government somehow finding the right to murder your own baby, which goes against every last sliver of science to say that life doesn't begin at conception, then you show up in D.C. That's why we're there. And I hope I've given you some hope that we're not there to cause trouble. We're there to see the Constitution obeyed.
Okay, well, Joe Bennett, Pennsylvania team leader for Operation American Spring, thank you very much for being on The Truth is Viral, brother. I appreciate your input, and we'll talk at you later. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. It was an honor.
Have a good night. All righty, that was Joe Bennett. He's the Pennsylvania team leader for Operation American Spring, and I'm getting kind of chilly Patrick, we need to stoke his fire up. This is my friend Patrick Sherrill, everybody. He's admin on the Truth is Viral Facebook page at www.com/Facebook/The Truth is Viral. And he does an awesome job helping me out around here and on the Facebook page. Jimmy Ellison, my forum administrator. You can check out the TTiV forum at ttiv.forummotion.com. He's in the chat room, keeping everybody under control, and he'll be joining us for a little roundtable discussion after we speak with my next guest. His name is Rich Buckner. He is the former Washington D.C. coordinator for Operation American Spring, and we'll talk to him in just a second. See if I can grab his phone number here. You know, Joe talked a lot about the positive aspects of Operation American Spring, and there are a lot of positive aspects. Let's make no mistake about it. Just scaring the pants off of Barack Obama is worth it. I remember during the biker ride through D.C., he got into Marine One and he got the hell out of Dodge when people started throwing barricades at the White House. People are angry. People are upset, and they're ready to rise up. And they need something. Is that something Operation American Spring? Well, at the end of this broadcast, we will make a decision together, you and I. And just enter this phone number, and we'll get Rich Buckner on the line. Don't forget to subscribe to the Truth is Viral secondary channel. It's youtube.com/user/The Truth is Viral. By a quirk, this channel was monetized first, or I would, be using The Truth is Viral, but it's not. But just in case something happens to this one, you need to make sure that you subscribe to our secondary channel, because Patriot pages and YouTube accounts are disappearing faster than baby seals up north. Mark Dice's page was taken down. Blaine Cooper's page was taken down. And when this is done, you have no recourse. I've been a YouTube partner for 2 years now. I have yet to speak with a real live person. Everything's done by automation, and one day I could wake up and find my page gone, and all that work just down the tube, no way to recover it. It's just gone, and no way to appeal it. It's just a mess. Okay, so we're now calling Rich Buckner. He's the former Washington D.C. coordinator for Operation American Spring.
Hello.
Hey, Rich, how are you doing?
Hey,
This is Bob Powell. Pretty good, thank you. Were you listening to the interview that I just conducted with Joe Bennett from Pennsylvania?
No, I wasn't able to listen to that. I had some other things we had to do, but kind of give me a synopsis here.
Okay. Well, if you've listened to anything that Colonel Harry Reid's had to say about Operation American Spring, Joe just pretty much repeated it.
Right.
But I'm calling you because you have special knowledge, knowledge that I don't have, which makes it special. I understand that you quit as the Washington, D.C. coordinator for Operation American Spring because, and this is the quote that I got, because it's just not what it appears. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I was contacted by a lady that was formerly one of the main staff with the movement, and
And she asked me if I'd be interested in doing this because back in 2008, we had a similar rally there, and I was in charge of public relations and also communications there in D.C. In fact, we were right there in front of the Capitol building itself, right there at the mall. And organization-wise, the group that organized at that time done a really good job. We had a really good working relationship with the Capitol Police. And we, logistic-wise, you have to understand, I spent 25 years in the Marine Corps, and, the main thing, you got to have plans. You got to have your beams and your bullets and everything planned out right to do it right. And I talked with the young lady, and I asked her a few questions because I'd heard Colonel Riley talk on a few of the shows, and I went up on the website, and the more I got looking around, and talking to people, there's one gentleman I talked to in Texas that, and it kind of convinced me this is probably not what I want to do, and the reason for that was the lack of what I felt. Now this is my own personal opinion. Lack of organization. I asked the gentleman in Texas, I said, have you contacted any of the people there in D.C. area, the Capitol Police? Nope, we don't have to. I'm like, you're already setting up an adversarial situation here. Your gripe's not with the police, your gripe's not with the local government there in D.C., your gripes with the current administration on the federal part. That doesn't mean that you have to have an adversarial situation with the beat cop there who's the Capitol Police. He's there doing a job, and you're not there to give him a hard time. So, they didn't ask for any permits, they said. And I'm an amateur radio operator, and they were talking about communications, and they were talking about using CB radios and FRS radios and GFRS radios and MERS and things like that, which you don't use those things. And as an amateur radio operator, the one thing you have to make certain is that only people who have licenses are on their certain frequencies, the amateur frequencies. And there were some things that was kind of set up on the forums about, well, you should have a license. No, you not should have a license. You will have a license, not should. But they said you should have a license, and wink, wink, basically, what they don't know won't hurt them. And to me, that right there, I didn't like that at all. And I had 4 or 5 people contact me because I had a thing up there on the forum saying, if you want to get a hold of me, I've been asked to be the communications man there in D.C. And they basically, they got a hold of me. Some of the guys did, and the first thing I asked them, I said, "What's your call letters? What's your average call letters?" Well, I'm not an amateur operator. Then why are you asking about what amateur frequencies are going to be used? You can monitor them all you want, but you're not allowed to transmit on them. Well, and I said, no, I don't know. I said, my feeling is if I'm the director of communications there, and you're starting to use these things illegally, I could lose my license, and that is not going to happen. So that was one thing. Plus, when I talked to the gentleman from Texas, he said, well, we're going to get you over there. We're going to pay for your trip over there and put you up in the whole 9 yards. And I said, well, where am I going to be at? And he said, well, we're going to put you in, this is the exact words, we're going to put you in a basement in Virginia.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be in a basement in Virginia. This isn't Kiev. This isn't the Ukraine. You're going to stick me in a basement there. And I thought, oh, this don't sound good. And then I received word from a few of the people who contacted me who also decided they wanted to get out of it. And I started putting some things together, like they're going to have militia groups. Now, first of all, they said they didn't want any problems there. Well, but then I hear Colonel Riley, and I read Colonel Riley basically stating that the militia group people are welcome there. They can wear the uniforms there. You're asking for some problems. And in fact, when I talked to the gentleman from Texas, I said, how many people do you really think you're going to have there? I said, do you think you're going to, yeah. He said, well, we're asking for 10 million. I said, you're not going to get that. You know that. He said, well, we'd be happy if we got 2 million. Well, right off the bat, that shaved 8 million people off. And I said, okay. I said, you're not going to get 50,000. Oh, yeah, we will. He said, we got 50,000 coming from Texas. And I'm like, okay. I said, no, you're not even going to get 50,000. And I said, but let's say for the sake of the argument, you're going to get 50,000. And let's say for the sake of the argument, 10%. No, that's actually even less. Let's say 2% of the 10,000 are going to be having a weapon. I said, you're going to have some nut out there. And he said, well, things like that happen. And I'm like, no, things like that don't happen. Number one, yeah, you're going into Washington, D.C., basically with a chip on your shoulder, okay? And you haven't coordinated with anything to do with the Capitol Police. You're just going to walk there. And I told him, I said, let me explain something to you. From my experience of I worked for the federal government other than being in the military for a long time.
What did you do for the federal government?
I was a senior systems programmer analyst for the Department of Defense.
Okay.
And I can tell you now, when boots hit the ground in D.C. and you have not got a permit to be in certain areas, they're going to come down on you. And I'll tell you what, I had one run-in with a Washington D.C. cop, and it was kind of my fault. I crossed where I shouldn't have crossed to get over to the Hart building because I was late to go do a videotaping. And this guy was ready to lock and load on me. He was upset. And I maintained my cool. But those boys around the Capitol, they're not going to play games. It's not going to be like the Bundy Ranch out there, the BLM situation. And you know, going with that, they've already got their nose bloodied, okay? The feds already got their nose bloodied because of the Bundy situation. You know, you don't go into their home turf and bloody their nose. They're not going to put up with it. They're not going to have it. Well, then I hear, you know, that up by Bull Run, they're supposed to have a staging area for some of the militia groups. Do you think if I know that, the feds don't know it? And do you think that if they know it, do you think if anything happens there on the mall area and they try to radio to have their backup reinforcements, whatever you want to call it, they're not even going to leave Bull Run.
Right.
Okay?
Now, I've
they're
seen...
not even going to leave there. You know, I mean, I've spent enough time in the military to know what a military operation is. And what they're running is not a military operation. It's a joke. Now, I'm going to probably get a lot of nasty grams on this one. I don't care. I don't want to see bloodshed, number one. There's a right way and a wrong way to have dissident. And the thing about it is this. You're getting a bunch of hotheads going there. And let's be realistic. Let's be realistic. You're going to walk in there and you're going to say, Obama, Holder, Bonner, we want you out of here. Leave. Who the hell do you think you are? You know what? And if one of them says, well, that's how the founding fathers, well, you know what? To coin a phrase, a similar phrase, I've read about the founding fathers, and you're nothing like them. Okay? Like, you remember when they said about John Kennedy?
Right.
I knew John Kennedy, and you're nothing like. Well, I'm saying I've read about the founding fathers, and you're nothing like them. If, you know, the Washington crossing the Delaware, there was some organization there. There was some logistical planning. I mean, just showing up. I mean, I asked him, I said, what are you guys going to do with, I mean, seriously, small things, first aid, hygiene, porta potties. They're basically telling everybody, show up with a bug-out bag on your back and be prepared to stay here a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but where are you going to poo?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where are you going to poo? I don't think
Yeah, you know, that's true. And the thing about it is, I was told that Colonel Riley, and I have nothing but the highest respect for Colonel Riley, okay? And I think he is so tired right now and so stressed out that I think he's being used by some people.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is with Colonel Riley, I mean, I heard that he's only going to be on the ground there about a day or so, and then they're going to whisk him off down to Florida. His wife is ill.
Yeah, I understand she has lupus.
He's tired. He's trying. I'm not against the principle of what they're wanting to do. I 100% agree that this isn't the government that I would want, and I wholeheartedly agree with what in principle they want to do. But the thing about it is, the way you're doing it is wrong. It's not. This isn't a third world nation yet. And this isn't Ukraine. This isn't Bosnia. This isn't the Middle East. They talk about the Arab Spring. One of the reasons why this isn't going to work is we haven't suffered enough. If people have got their high-speed internet, their iPhone, their smartphone, a 50-inch color television set, and their pizza, they could care less.
Well,
they're not being shot at. They're not being, and until that happens, people are going to say, it ain't bothering me. I still got my high-speed internet, and I can still text my phone messages, and I can go on vacation and things. So people haven't suffered enough to be really concerned with, and I'm not saying that to be a smart aleck.
Oh no, I understand exactly what you mean.
It's a fact.
Yeah, as long as they've got
if
dancing.
You go out there and you poll 10 people, until you start taking food out of their mouth, money out of their pocket, big time money out of their pockets. If tomorrow the dollar bill crashed, which could possibly happen, who knows? But if the dollar bill crashed, that might do it. Or if tomorrow anybody who said anything against the government would be picked up with disregard to habeas corpus or disregard to anything like that, or posse comitas would be completely wiped out and they just send military, that might do it. If they said everybody who owns a weapon, and incidentally, I don't even own a weapon. I don't own one, so I have no dog in that fight. I feel that everyone who wants to own a weapon should be able to. I think that it's in the Constitution, and I'm a constitutionalist. Contrary to belief, that's not a bad word.
No.
But the thing about it is, we haven't suffered enough. If one of those other instances would happen, it might spark them. But you know what? They know how much to push somebody. And I'm not going to sit there and be a conspiracy theorist and say, well, there's FEMA camps all over the place, because I'll be very honest with you. I was told here in Indiana there's a FEMA camp down at Camp Atterbury. There's one in Indianapolis. I spent time here in Indiana in the military as an instructor, going to all the military armories in this state. And I know about Camp Atterbury. There's nothing down there. And I read all these stuff about, well, we got to. Now, is Halliburton making these things? They might be. I don't know. But the ones that they said that was, the ones at Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the ones at Detroit, I mean, up near in my old state, your state, they talk about down by near Detroit, at the Detroit, it was the induction center. In fact, that's where I went into when I went in the military back in the 70s. Those aren't FEMA camps. I've been to those places recently. So, the fastest way that you can lose credibility is come up with some cockamamie stories. If you really want to do something, come up with something that's real, okay? Come up with something that's real, where they're keeping some people in, fusion centers or whatever. Fusion centers, if you don't know what they are, they're an intelligence organizations that are in each state.
Right.
Indiana's got one in Indiana. Those are real. Those are real. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was stationed down there. That's real. Do the things that are real. Don't be concocting some stories. And it just worries me when I read up on the website up there that they have, their forum, some of the off the wall stuff people are asking and talking about.
Well, you know, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you really can't put anything past this president. I mean, who would have thought that the president of the United States would be giving arms and supplies to Al-Qaeda terrorists in Libya and in Syria? Who would have ever thought that he would? The very first thing that he ever did was give.
The United States is just a passing tenant of 1600 Washington, Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington D.C. He's not much more than a puppet.
Well, I don't. This is one evil puppet.
You got a lot of people like Harry Reid and Pelosi and Feinstein and those guys there. The only thing that this president has done that the rest of them didn't do is he learned the power of the executive order. He learned the power of that. Do I agree with his policies? Heck no. Do I like him in there as the president? Heck no. But the only thing that he does, and he's learned real well, is the executive order. He does things with executive orders which doesn't have to go through Congress and the Senate. You know who I blame? I blame the Congress and the Senate for not getting off of their dead butts and start invoking some of the powers that they possess. Well, you know, there's supposed to be ratifications, and there's supposed to be bills, and there's supposed to be things such as that nature. They're letting him do that. If all these congressmen and senators would stand up and say, whoa, 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 you just don't do that. You don't send troops into an area without our approval. You don't throw another war without our approval. If they would step back, and you know what? Why they don't want to do it? Because they realize if they do that, they're in danger of losing their jobs.
Now, well, they're not just letting him; they're actively cooperating with him, with the National Defense Office.
You made $170,000 a year at your job.
Well,
to begin with, would you want to rock the boat?
Yeah. $170,000 doesn't even begin to buy my honor.
Pardon?
$170,000 wouldn't even begin to buy my honor. If I was making $170,000.
Look at it this way. How many of those guys in Congress and the Senate were ever in the military? How many of their sons or daughters are now in the military?
Well, most of them are just doggone lawyers.
I can count on both hands. There's less than 10, I bet. Out of 550 almost people, 435 with congressional, and you got they got two for each state. I mean, there's certain people that when you took the oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign, against all enemies, keyword enemies, both foreign and domestic. You took the oath, I took the oath. I spent time in the Marine Corps. I believe you were in the Marine Corps.
Yes, sir, I was. 0341, I was a mortarman.
We took an oath, and you know what? There was no, it didn't say I had to do this until I got out of the military. I had to do this until such and such a date. I took the oath. And I hold that I still am bound by that oath.
Oh, yeah, my oath doesn't have an expiration date either.
No, it doesn't. But the thing about it is, these guys don't have any honor. Come on.
Well, you'd think they'd have common sense.
Backroom deals. You're talking about guys, I mean, look at it. Obama went to school in Hawaii, okay? I'm not going to get into the birther situation, but Obama went to school in Hawaii. We all agree with that. Do you know how much the tuition was at the school that he attended for 4 years for each year?
Well, it was
$20,000 a year.
That's pretty steep, private school. And who was paying for that?
Considering $80,000 for 4 years, I could get an engineering degree out of Purdue University for that.
Who do you think was paying for that? His unemployed mother?
Who knows? Who knows? I have no idea who was paying for it. but it just, you got a guy whose main job was being a community organizer and then becoming a junior senator for the state of Illinois, and then bingo, he's president. I mean, I thought it was amazing when Bill Clinton became president. I go, wow, where'd this guy come from?
Did you know that
he was an obscure governor from an obscure state, and boom, he's president. Obama, it even surprised me even more. I mean, they talked about the birth certificate. Now, I'm not going to get in the middle of that sucker because you're not going to win until he's out of there. But how about his Social Security number? They've traced that down to somebody in New Hampshire, and he never even lived in that state.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is you got Joe Bennett out there, Sheriff Joe. He's proven that stuff, but no one's listening. Why? Because, well, none of the Democrats want to admit they're morons, and the Republicans are afraid that if it blows back in their face, then they're going to be looking bad. So and think of it this way: what are we going to have in 2016? Well, if we have Hillary, all you got to do is say one word, Benghazi, and that'll blow her out of the water.
Hopefully.
And who's going to be her running mate? They're talking about Biden. Oh, that's interesting. And
I can't imagine who would want to be a vice president for 16 years.
Well, but who wants? Seriously, who do we have on the Republican side? You got maybe, well, McCain won't do it again. Thank God. I didn't want McCain in there in the first place because he scares me.
Yeah,
I was in the military a long time, and that guy scares me.
There's a guy here in Michigan I like. His name is Justin the Mash. But yeah,
he's not going to get it because he's not well known. We got guys here. Mike Pence, the governor of the state of Indiana. We had before that we had the former White House budget director was left the White House and became our governor here before Pence here in Indiana. I mean, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have states. I think what will be the shot fired and heard around the world will be a state will do it. Rick Perry from Texas, you know.
Right.
If they start trying to grab land between Texas and Oklahoma, look out. You got here in Indiana, you got Mike Pence, and Mike Pence just told Common Core, which is a educational thing that they've dreamed up. Some morons have dreamed up in D.C. for education, Department of Education, which the federal government shouldn't have anything to do with it on a state level anyway. But in Indiana, they said, we don't want it.
It wasn't Indiana one of the first states to accept Common Core, too?
Who?
Indiana.
No, they didn't accept it. We haven't accepted Common Core here.
No, okay,
fact,
I must be mistaken.
We're getting our fingers smacked because we didn't accept it.
Okay. Well, Rich, let's get back to Operation American Spring. Let's get back to Operation American Spring. We got a little while left, but need to cover some points here. Do you know who Richard Hall is? Friends with Colonel Riley. Okay.
No.
Well, the information that
I've heard of him, but I don't know that much about
it. The information that I got from inside American Spring is that he quit after he found some FBI moles in the operation.
Well, you know that's going to be in there.
Well, yeah,
and,
sure.
And you know what's going to happen in D.C. is the federal government is just itching for a way to declare martial law. They're just itching. So what do? You put a mole in there. The guy then causes the problem. Someone does something stupid, and it could be the mole that does it, and it's not stupid because it's already planned.
Right.
Say. He does something, and then all of a sudden, whoop, we can't have this type of situation in our own capital, declare martial law. And everybody will go, oh, we agree with you. Go right ahead and do it.
Okay, now
I can believe there's moles in there. Sure there is.
Sure. The Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and state leaders from Missouri, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, 2 from Nevada, West Virginia, they've all quit. here recently from
You
Operation
know
American
why
Spring.
you know why the federal government doesn't like the sheriffs? Because they're the highest rank. Well, actually, the highest ranking official, law enforcement official in the state,
Well, yeah,
in your counties, is actually not the sheriff. It is the coroner.
right.
But the sheriff is basically the highest ranking
Elected official.
official in your state that he's elected in your county. He's elected.
Right. That I understand why they're afraid of it.
You know, and they don't know how to handle that. See, the sheriff, by being an elected official, has to basically please his constituents. So if your constituents don't want this to happen, and the sheriff goes against them, well, what's going to happen in 4 years?
Well, you know, yeah, he's
not going to get reelected.
he'll get replaced. I wonder why that doesn't translate into the federal government. Here in Michigan.
Well, because you don't have term limits and everything else. If you had term limits on these characters in D.C., the congressmen and the senators, you know, I can remember reading where was it Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett when they went to Congress. They went there and they went there for a one term and then they were gone. They'd come back.
It was Davy
That's
Crockett.
How it used to be. You'd have someone going there. It was an honor. It was an honor to serve. You'd go there and then you'd serve your time and you'd come back to your civilian life.
Yeah, they don't serve anymore. What they do now is they dictate.
Think about it. You take a job that you take a job. You spend 20 years in it and you retire. And then you retire and you usually you become some type of a mouthpiece for a corporation, or you become something along that line. You work for Halliburton or one of those characters, and into the big money. And it's the same thing with the high-ranking military.
Yeah,
they don't want to cause any bad situation because they want to get out of there and work for some corporation. But now you got 200 staff grade officers that have been let loose, and the charges they had him on they had one. He cheated at poker. Oh, so what are they going to do? They're going to take him out of the position. He cheated at poker. I mean, I'm not joking. That's happened.
Yeah.
And why they're doing this, I don't think these guys will play I think these guys would not play ball, and decided they would not play ball, and voiced that they would not play ball. And the administration said, well, you can go play ball. We're going to take away your bat and your ball and your mitt and put you out. Plus, you take somebody who's been in the military 25, 30 years, and you'll say, okay, either you quietly leave or we'll find a way to take your pension. Well, who the hell wants to be 60-some years old and not get anything? Come on.
Right.
People's got to live.
You were talking...
That's just a fact. I'm not saying it's right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's right, it's correct, it's proper, it's honorable, or anything else. All I'm saying is I can understand.
Right. Now, you were talking earlier about Bull Run, and my source inside Operation American Spring is extremely worried about all the patriots being put in this one particular location. And there's a forum thread on the Operation American Spring on their Ning site, talking about getting everybody in this one particular campground. And brother, you know as well as I do, you don't concentrate your troops. You don't concentrate your troops. You spread them out.
That's the best thing in the world for the feds. They'll have them contained in one area. And if you think that they're going to be able to leave that area and march into Washington, you're crazy.
Do you think that the feds would actually stop them? I mean, even if they weren't...
Sure they would.
They would. Even if they were peaceful and unarmed, they would stop them?
Excuse me? They don't... If they can hold you due to the Patriot Act, if they can hold you for an indefinite amount of time without filing charges against you, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
Well, I can imagine that a few thousand patriots just disappearing all of a sudden would cause a little bit of an uproar.
They won't disappear. They won't be harmed. They won't disappear. They just won't be able to leave that area. there'll be a traffic jam or something. I mean, come on, think about it. It's not that hard to stop a movement. Not that hard to stop a movement. It happened in World War II when it rained. The tanks would get bogged down. Next thing you know, you got a huge column 200 miles long that wasn't going nowhere. Hey, they block off a couple of main arteries down there on the roads, and hey, you can't get to D.C.
Okay,
You
well,
can't get to D.C. Or they send some people down there from immigration. Naturally, let's see your may I see your papers?
yeah, well, let's war game.
Or how about a drug search or alcohol? Well, guess what? They have them all over the state of Indiana and other states, where they'll actually go in there and then they'll pull you over and check your driver's license and all this other stuff.
Okay, well, let's war game just for a second. Let's say that they do get into Washington, D.C. There's, let's say, 50,000 people there, and and there are a certain percentage of those people that are agent provocateurs that are going to fire a shot and cause some bloodshed. What happens then? There are patriots lying on the streets,
if someone
bloody.
fires a weapon, first of all, they're stupid. But if they do, it's all over. It's all over. They're going to take those people out. It's going to be a complete chaos, because I truly believe a lot of these guys, a lot of these veterans that are going there, that's not what that's not what they signed on for. They didn't sign on to be shot at, killed. They didn't sign on to go through that. Now, there's some of them, the hotheads, they're itching for a fight. They're itching for a fight. And when it happens, I don't know. I like to say, I think it should be basically a alcohol-free, drug-free, weapon-free event. But is it going to be that way? I don't know. I hope and pray it does. But here's a little thing you got to think about. And this isn't a conspiracy situation. This is actual fact. Take a 100 mile, take a ruler and go in 100 miles around the entire United States. Okay? That's what you call a constitutional free zone. They can check your vehicle. They can check your person. They can do all that stuff. They can confiscate without violating your constitutional rights. Now, where does that 100-mile thing?
In Michigan, the entire state falls within that 100-mile.
Guess what? It falls within 40 miles of me here in Indiana.
Yeah. Yeah, in theory.
We're not talking 100 miles as a road. We're talking 100 miles as the crow flies.
Yeah.
Almost all of Florida is in that.
Yeah, in theory.
Because you're going on both sides of it. But you go around. So basically, if they invoke that, they can bring in federal people and say, we're here to do it.
Yeah, in theory, Border Patrol could come to my house right now and demand to look through my laptop.
True.
That's just wrong.
Well, I didn't say it was right.
Well, no, I know
I didn't by no means say it was right. But the thing about it is this. Don't do anything that you don't want them to do to you if you're not prepared to have it done. That's basically it. I mean, am I saying we should bow down to the powers being? No. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And they'll say, well, it took the blood of patriots and tyrants to water the field of the tree of freedom. Yeah, but you know what? That was when everybody was carrying muskets. Now they've got drones. They've got sound weapons, the ultrasound systems that they used. They used them over in Afghanistan. They've used them in Iraq that generates the high-frequency sound that basically get your ears bleeding on you. Make your skin feel like it's burning from microwave. And that's not sci-fi. That they actually got it. They use and the police have used.
Right, I've seen that.
The thing about it is we ain't got that stuff. So, when everybody, when the British marched in a straight line and had muskets and we hid behind trees and had muskets, it was kind of a fair game because they had more people than we had. You know that less than 5% of the country back in 1776, less than 5% fought for our freedom.
I thought that's
Most of
what
them were
the
Tories that wanted to stay with Britain. Other ones didn't care as long as they had their farms and things.
I thought
Less
that's where
than
the
5%.
3%, isn't it? Isn't that the reason
Well,
for that
I
group?
was going to say
3%ers.
3%. That's why I said less than 5.
Yeah.
Because I figured nobody believed me at 3.
Yeah.
But less than, like, so 3%. 3%. It's like Vietnam. The reason why we lost Vietnam was the guys in Vietnam, Viet Cong, the farmers up in the north, as long as they had their water buffalo and their rice paddy, they didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
They didn't give a crap. And unfortunately, 3% of the people fought for our freedom. I don't even know if we can get 3% now. Because everybody is complacent. Everybody is, once again, as long as I've got my internet, as long as I got my cell phone and a pizza, I'm all right. But if everybody woke up tomorrow morning and they said, guess what? No more Social Security, no more military pensions, no more Medicare, no more food stamps, there'd be riots. And if you think I'm wrong, down in the southern part of the United States, they had several months back, they had a deal where the food stamp thing went a little bit blitzy for a couple of days, and they completely destroyed a Walmart store down there.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
They completely destroyed it. Why? Because their food stamp card wouldn't work. So if tomorrow morning if they woke up and they said, hey, Rick, you're not gone, I'm 62. I'll be drawing my Social Security here in July. If they said, you're not going to get your Social Security, you're not going to get, and we're going to cut off your military pension, and if they told that to 26 million people, being that they're veterans, would there be a problem? Yeah, I think there would be. Because at that point, they're basically saying, we don't care if you die from exposure, because you can't pay for your electricity, and you starve. We don't care. At that point, I think it's going to be a situation where it's like, hey, gloves are off, man. But we're not going to get to that because they're not going to go do that. They will do like they do in the Soviet Union or the old Soviet Union. You know, we're getting so much socialistic, and they're getting so more democratic over there. Somewhere in the middle, you're going to meet, I guess. But what's going to happen is you're going to have, you know, they're going to take care of the electricity. My electricity bill was $600 a month for 3 months. $600. Okay, and what's going to happen is, and I foresee this happening. If they don't get this under control pretty soon for utility costs, I see where they nationalize them.
Yeah.
Because $600, no, that will make people riot. That will make, because they can't, you know. I'm okay. I get my pension and I'll have my Social Security and my wife's got her Social Security, so I'll be all right. Will I be rich? By no means, no.
Okay. Well, Rich,
the thing about it is,
I'm sorry.
There's some people out there that's all they have to live on.
Tell me about it. I'm one of them. Rich, there's one.
When you take that away from them, there's nothing else for them to do but revolt.
Yeah, there's one more question I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
You know, when I first started covering Operation American Spring, I did a story on Major General Vallely having co-written a paper with avowed Satanist Colonel Michael Aquino on how to mind control crowds anywhere from an unruly street mob to entire populations of entire countries. And after I published that episode, my contact inside American Spring that I can't say who this source is because this person is deathly afraid of being killed, told me that Vallely had me investigated. And that's where these
well, but from what I do know, he is uber conservative. Okay.
Yeah, well, so am I.
Right wing,
but I'm not a neocon.
So you know, I if somebody gets on his bad side, I don't envy him.
Yeah, they've got
If you got on his
Humvees
bad side, I
following
don't
me.
envy it.
I got Humvees following me. It's ridiculous. And then when I put video of the Humvee that was following me on, then they switched to Crown Victorias. Like I'm an idiot.
Oh,
Okay,
I've got a
I
Crown
know
Vic,
how
but
to
it wasn't
spot a
me.
tail. Okay, but what's concerning me here is the Tea Party Nation has endorsed Operation American Spring, and that's one of Laley's groups. I do not want to see him
Well,
in
I've heard
Washington
him say that
D.C.
he was part of the group. I've heard him say that he wasn't. I don't know. Like you say, my whole experience with Operation American Spring transpired over a period of about a week.
Yeah.
I was contacted by the same lady that you had talked with, and she said, we understand that we have a website, and on our website, it's called veteransunited.org. We get about 250,000 people viewing that thing every month, and we also do a radio show, and it's a technology show, but half of it is also political.
Right.
And I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I consider myself a constitutionalist. I am conservative.
No, I'm a monarchist. I'm waiting for my coming. I'm waiting for the coming
Well,
king.
we've had too many kings on there. We've already got one now, so we don't need another one.
Well, my king's name is Jesus Christ, and he'll be here in a little bit.
Well, that I agree with. That I agree with. Well, and that one there, I'll side with you on.
Yeah, Rich Buckner, former Marine and former D.C. coordinator for Operation American Spring. Appreciate your service, brother. Thank you so much. And
hey, no problem. Good luck, and everybody just kind of watch what happens May the 16th. We might be proven wrong. I'm not saying that we won't, but I highly doubt it.
Okay, well, thank you for being on the show, Rich. I appreciate it. Have a good night. Simplify, brother.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I said that I would let you know what I was thinking at the end of the show. Well, we're not quite at the end of the show. We've still got our roundtable discussion coming up. So, Jimmy, get ready for that. I'm going to be calling you here in just a minute. How do I feel about Operation American Spring? Well, we got to do something. And it's dangerous. People could very well die at this event. It all depends on how nervous the government gets. It depends on whether or not they have an agent provocateur fire from the crowd or into the crowd. Depends on a whole lot of things, and as I've said many times, I'm not a prophet, so I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can tell you the possibilities, but I can't tell you which of those possibilities the powers that be will choose. So what are we going to do? I would say if you want to go to Washington, D.C. and let the government know exactly how you feel, holy moly, this is above my pay grade. I can't tell you what to do. It's dangerous. If you go, you may very well be killed. You'll definitely be labeled as a domestic terrorist, put into a database, and somewhere down the road, you could wake up to a SWAT team busting in your door. Just like the guys that defended the Bundy Ranch are looking forward to someone busting in their door. If you go, I would urge you to go unarmed, to go with a peaceful intent, and to keep your eye out for people that might not have a peaceful intent. You know, if you come across somebody like that, well, you know what to do. Why don't we take a quick break, about 2 minutes, and when we come back, I will get a hold of my forum administrator. His name is Jimmy, and we'll have a discussion between Marines and my administrator from the Facebook site, Patrick, over here. He's been waiting patiently. I know he's got a lot on his mind. We're going to talk more about that. But, hey, if I'm going to be truthful, folks, I got to pee. So I'll be right back. Patrick, let's get this fire stoked up, bro. It's getting really cold. Oh, God. Hey, Smokey. You know, you're supposed to put the smaller twigs underneath the bigger ones, bro.
Yeah. I had some down there, but it kind of died out on me. There we go. Had to get some air back down there. Yep. I think I just blocked the airflow a little bit.
Okay. As I'm sure you might have noticed, Patrick has a decidedly non-Michigan accent. He's a good old boy from Arkansas. It's Arkansas, right?
Yep.
Whew, I'll tell you, there's nothing like a fire in northern Michigan, especially when it's just a bit chilly, because it's like sweet and sour on your chicken, right? It's a little bit of both, because it feels so good to warm your hands up by the fire. The only thing that would make it better is if I had a tent set up. Could see, because we live so far north on the 45th parallel on a clear night. If there's a solar flare, you can see the aurora borealis. I've seen northern lights up here like crazy, and we're so far away from industrial light pollution that the Milky Way just is blazing across the sky. It's beautiful out here. If I didn't have these lights, we could see what we were doing by the stars. Okay, let's bring Jimmy into this conversation. I gotta get his phone number here. He was taking care of the trolls in the comment boxes. I appreciate that. Some guy named Logan was really showing his butt there for a while. Logan, come here and give me a kiss. Sweet pea.
Hello.
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing, brother?
Good, got you here, brother.
All right, good deal. Hey, you've been watching the show, so what do you think about Operation American Spring?
Personally, I think Operation American Spring is derived from good feelings, but I believe it's been infiltrated and it's going to be a trap.
Okay, what gives you this impression?
Basically, all the information I've been reading, I believe it's good groups with good values who want to get this thing done. But just as we saw with the Bundy Ranch, with that infiltrating the militia, I believe the same thing is happening with the American Spring people, and I believe it's going to lead to a disaster.
Okay, folks, Jimmy is not without tactical experience. He is a combat-tested Marine. He fought in the second battle for Fallujah, and so he knows a little bit about tactics and stuff like that. He's not just pulling this stuff out of his butt. And I'm not a combat-tested Marine, but I'm a Marine. I know tactics. You know, we're taught these things, and you know, it just seems off. There's not a clear plan for what to do after. Let's say that all of the people that they want to get rid of just suddenly disappear. Let's say that they're raptured, they're miracled up into heaven. What then? Okay, who's got the control of the nuclear football? Who is in charge of this country? We cannot.
In that case, it would be a very bad thing, because with all the good patriots gone, look who would be left in charge. The same criminals that are running our government today.
Yeah, we can't count on those people.
We can't count on them, nor can we trust them. Look at what's going on with the VA today. You know, we've got numerous scandals arising across the United States today. But what they're not telling is that these scandals are happening in every VA across the country. I myself have fell through the cracks in my local VA more than twice. And if not for the work of good advocates and good family, I would be much worse off than I am now. The only reason I'm in a good position is because I've been able to fight for what is mine, fight for what I deserve, for what I did for my country.
Yeah. Patrick, you haven't been in the military.
Actually, I was in the Army.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were in the Army.
No, it's okay.
Well,
it's not the Marines, but you know.
I'm sorry.
Well, Patrick, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
It's nice to talk to you face to face.
Thank you.
So, what did you do when you were in the Army?
Cavalry Scout.
Cavalry Scout. Okay. So then you've got a little bit of experience in tactics as well. What do you think about Operation American Spring?
I love the idea. I think the idea and behind it is fantastic. We have to do something. I think the way that it's being done, the way that things are going about it, it's going to lead to disaster. I really do. I've had a bad feeling about this from the beginning. I would love to see this be a bonus, a plus for America to get the changes that we needed to get it kicked in gear and get it going. But I just don't see it happening the way that they are laying it out.
Yeah. I'm sure you wouldn't put it past Obama to, put some agent provocateurs in there and start this thing, because he's got all these scandals, AP, Benghazi, the IRS, and, maybe someday they'll pay attention to the fact that he's murdering American citizens with drones. That's my pet peeve. But there's no way he can survive if the political process goes forward properly. If the Senate or the House Select Committee on Benghazi finds impeachable offenses, he's going down. If John Boehner can find some balls, and if Harry Reid will even allow a Senate Select Committee, because they can't do it together. They've got to have one on each side of the aisle and one in each house, and it's just, well, we had a word for it in the Marine Corps. Ladies, close your ears. Clusterfuck. Okay. So, Patrick, if you had the money to go, would you?
I had considered going. I very seriously considered going. I mean, I don't have the money at the time, but I very seriously considered going. I want this to be a good thing.
Yeah. But, let's just say that we won the $1 million mega lottery and money was no object. Would you go?
That's a tough question. I honestly don't know.
I know it's a tough question. It's why I repeated it.
Bob, I've got an answer to that question if you're interested.
Okay, we'll let Patrick think about it, and you tell me your answer, Jimmy.
My answer, if I had the money to go, I would go, but not without an escape plan. Because what I believe is Washington, D.C. is a gun-free zone. You're not allowed to carry a gun, whether you are permitted by another state or not. Right now, I'm currently permitted by the state of Michigan to carry a gun wherever I want, as long as the state allows it. And as that stands, I cannot walk into Washington, D.C. with my gun. So my fear is that they are luring all these patriots into a gun-free zone, and then they're going to put infiltrators in the mix to fire shots and create a martial law situation, which will then flow over to the rest of the country. We saw what happened in Boston last year after the Boston Marathon bombing. That was completely unconstitutional and uncalled for. People being taken out of their houses at gunpoint and their houses searched without due process was wrong. No matter which way you look at it, it was wrong. And what we're about to see in D.C. with Operation American Spring is going to springboard from that and create chaos across America, if you ask my opinion.
Yeah, it's a very good possibility, and that's what scares me to death. There's a comment here underneath the video from Josh. He says that he would rather see people march on their state capitol and start fixing things at the state level, and that's a very good plan. That's something
I fully agree with that.
That's something that we've been doing here in Michigan, Jimmy. Remember, the last 2 years, the Michigan House and the Michigan Senate both voted unanimously.
Absolutely, and look at what the Michigan legislation has done for us in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
They have passed more firearm-friendly laws than any other state other than Georgia.
Right.
Michigan is leading that fight right now. A generally blue state is leading the fight in firearms rights.
Yeah, not only that, but
and that's something that myself is fighting for, and every other veteran in Michigan is fighting for. We want that right.
Yeah, not only that, but the Michigan State Legislature, both houses, voted unanimously to nullify the treasonous National Defense Authorization Act. And Governor Snyder signed that into law just before Christmas. That was a great Christmas present. But
that was the best Christmas present our legislation could have given us.
But here's the thing. You see, our federal level legislators, people like Carl Levin, Debbie Stabenow, and my local legislator here, Dr. Dan Benichek, who is ducking me, will not come on this program, even though 4,500 of my viewers are from Michigan. 4,500 of my regular subscribers are from Michigan. He's ducking me, won't come on the show. They all voted for the National Defense Authorization Act, even though on a state level, our representatives rejected it unanimously. That's treason.
I can tell you, Bob, both our United States senators in Michigan have been ducking me as well. I've been writing them letters religiously. I write them every week. I do not let up. I have not heard a thing. I wrote them both about signing the UN Small Arms Treaty, which is against the United States American Constitution, something they should be thrown out of office for. And I have not heard a reply yet.
Did you even get one of those pro forma replies that said, "We got your email"?
No, I did not.
Huh. Well, how about that? Hey,
Yeah,
Patrick,
exactly.
where are those beers? Or no, it's not a beer, it's a hard cider. I've been wanting to try one of these. Can you grab me one of those? Cool. Yeah, I've been drinking soda pop, but now that we're a little bit more informal, it's time to go to the hard stuff, the hard apple cider. This should be interesting. I've never had that before.
I'm sticking with the Irish ciders tonight myself.
When Irish eyes are smiling. Oh, imagine 36HZ says, "I can't believe Bible believers are scared." Well, I'm not scared of the ultimate resolution of this matter. I mean, what is the worst thing that they can do? They can kill me. And then what? Well, I'll be in heaven with Lord Jesus Christ. You cannot threaten me with death. No, what scares me is all the suffering that other people are going to be going through. People that call for this. Hold on just 1 second, Jimmy. Jimmy, hold on just 1 second. Hold on just 1 second, Jimmy. People that are calling for this, for violent revolution, really don't know what they're talking about. Okay? Jimmy's been in Fallujah. He's seen what happens to neighborhoods when you've got armed men going house to house, fighting. Innocent people die. Now, Marines and other military men know more than anybody else that war is a horrible thing. Something to be avoided at all costs. And when that war is to be fought in our neighborhoods, among our homes, well, we just absolutely have to redouble our efforts and make sure that all legal recourse has been expended before something like that happens. And we have not run that course yet. We still have many legal options. We're just now beginning to get to an impeachable situation in the House of Representatives. And will Barack Obama be impeached? I don't know. I can't say. I don't know if John Boehner and his cohorts will be able to find their balls and actually do the deed, do the thing that we all know must be done. But we have to try. That's what makes.
Well, I can tell you Bob,
that's the difference between us and them.
Constantly, I will not let up. I will not stop. I will not be stood down until the day I die. They will hear my complaints. They will hear what I have to say. I will never stand down and face the tyranny.
Amen. Nor will I, because it's not just me that I'm, worried about. I'm not worried about me at all. They can take this meat sack anytime that they want. It wouldn't bother me a bit.
It's our children.
I'm worried about my children. I'm worried about my grandchildren.
Our children and our grandchildren.
I do not want them growing up as slaves in this country. And according to Executive Order 13603 that Obama signed into law March 12th of 2012, that's exactly what he can do. He can order the conscription of any person, place, or thing. Have any one of his minions order the conscription of any person, place, or thing, subjecting them to a state of abject slavery. The wording in the executive order says, any person with outstanding experience and ability may be employed without compensation. Folks, there's only one phrase for that definition. That phrase is slavery.
Because people are not picking up on that. No matter how many times we share it on the website, no matter how many times people see it, they do not understand the reality of that nature. They do not understand that at the signing of a pen, our president can take total control of everything we do. And that is one of the scariest factors in America today. That people care more about their creature comfort than they do what could happen to them in the face of disaster.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that people are going to be in for a really rude awakening, and I don't think that time is far off. I watched a video not too long ago, just this last week, of Sergeant Major Dan Page. He was the senior enlisted man in AFRICOM up until the attack on the CIA outpost in Benghazi, and he says that it's coming. It's imminent. The destruction of this country. And I think that any person that looks at the state of this country, it can see it coming too. I mean, my gosh, I'm a man. Okay, I can appreciate a good-looking woman, but I see Miley Cyrus doing what she does, just getting on stage and masturbating on top of a car, and this is the example that's being set for our children. My 13-year-old granddaughter used to be a Miley Cyrus fan. She no longer is. Thank God.
Well, that's good to hear.
But
as a father of a 4-year-old, I can tell you that stuff drives me insane. My daughter is avid in dance right now, and a lot of the uniforms and songs they have them trying to perform in dance is ludicrous when you look at it from a conservative point of view. And it drives me nuts, and it's to the point where we're getting ready to pull her from dance because of it.
Yeah, and I look at Miley Cyrus, and I look at the stuff, the toddlers with tiaras. Okay, they take these little girls and they make them up, and they look like whores. Not to put too fine a point on it, and it's just disgusting. It just really makes me sick. The state of our country today, where and the Bible talks about it. They said that in the end days, good would become evil, and evil would become good. And the battle that we're fighting is not a physical battle so much as it's a spiritual battle against the powers and the principalities of the air, which is the dominion of Satan. And they're sticking it in our face every single day. What they do just yesterday at Harvard University? Well, they held a satanic black mass. Christianity is under attack everywhere you turn.
There's been a lot of really liberal, highly liberal crap going on at the University of Michigan lately. My wife, she works for the University of Michigan Health System, so she has to witness this stuff on a regular basis. And these people are fighting over the affirmative action ban that the Supreme Court upheld, which has held the University of Michigan for so long to deny normal white people admission due to the fact that they need to accept so many people of ethnicity.
Right, I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember. Have you seen that interview that I did with the Michigan Department of Human Services whistleblower that said that they give special preferences to black people and take away benefits from white people, and they get brownie points when they do that?
I have not seen your interview yet, but I have read some articles pertaining to that matter.
Yeah, this came about. I learned about this after I applied for Obamacare and was denied. You know, Michigan is one of those states that didn't accept the Medicaid expansion. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I've got my Medicare, but without the Medicaid, I can't afford the 20% copays that Medicare doesn't pay for. So
something I'll tell you from my side is growing up near Ann Arbor, Michigan, we knew right from the get-go that Ann Arbor, Michigan, the University of Michigan, was a pro-ethnic university, that white people had a very low chance of getting in there compared to ethnic people just due to the fact of those laws. And for a long time it was like that. We would go to downtown Ann Arbor, and the University of Michigan would be full of ethnic people and very low numbers of white people. And that's slowly starting to change, but you still have students fighting for the affirmative action. And it's causing a lot of chaos down here in Ann Arbor. And, you know, if you ever want to come down and do a story on it, Bob, I've got your back.
Well, you know, affirmative action was just struck down here in Michigan, Jimmy.
Yeah, and that's actually what's causing a lot of the problems. You have a lot of students fighting back against that.
Yeah.
Even though over the years, numerous highly qualified Caucasian students have been denied through the University of Michigan and many other universities in the area due to the affirmative action. And that's what led to this court case going to the Supreme Court. And luckily, the Supreme Court ruled in the favor that they should have in the state.
Yeah. Well, you know, there are a lot of stories that I want to do down that way. I want to go to Dearborn. I'm going to need you to watch my back as we talk to some Muslims in Dearborn and ask them why they think that Sharia law should be the law of the land in that fine city. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do that way, and you know, I never have physically met my brother Jimmy, but I'm looking forward to it. And Jimmy, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for being on the show, brother, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for the great job that you're doing over at the forum at TTiV.forummotion.com. I would put your work that you've done there up against any other forum on the internet, and thank you so much for that. That was just awesome.
Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. And tell everybody, come to the forum, start a discussion. We
Amen.
can talk all night and all day.
All right, we'll do. Talk to you later, brother.
All right, man. Thank you.
Good night. God bless. And that was Jimmy Ellison, the administrator that takes care of my day-to-day operations at TTiV.forummotion.com. He's a great guy, great Marine, a true hero, veteran of the Battle of Fallujah, and my friend. And my other friend here, Patrick Sharrow, he's administrator over at my Facebook site, Truth is Viral, Facebook.com/The Truth is Viral. And we're going to call it into this episode of The Truth is Viral. I hope you enjoyed it. And we're going to get to some of these Angry Orchard crisp apple hard ciders. These are pretty good. I want to tell you guys, give you an update on the wife. She had a PET scan done last month that showed 2 new areas of cancer. She had another PET scan done last week. We haven't got the results yet. because after the last PET scan, they started her on a new type of chemotherapy, the last ditch brand, and I guess we'll see if that's working or not next week. In the meantime, and of immediate and pressing importance, I would ask that you guys keep my son Adam in your prayers. He just about to turn 16, and this is really affecting him badly. Adam's not here tonight. He is spending most nights at friends' houses these days. You know, when this first started a couple of weeks ago, it was just on the weekends, and then he started wanting to spend night next door neighbors on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm like, finally, son, what's going on? Why don't you want to be home? And he told me that he can't stand to be here to watch his mom die a little bit more every single day. And that just broke my heart. So yeah, he's having a real hard time dealing with this. I would appreciate it if you would lift him up to Father, to give him the strength that he's going to need to deal with his mother's passing, if that is God's will. So thank you, everybody, for watching The Truth is Viral. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Add me to your Google Plus circle. If there's a social media platform, just look around for The Truth is Viral. We've got a presence there. My name is Bob Powell, and as always, God bless, Semper Fi, and hoorah. Good night from Northern Michigan, everybody. We're going to hit these hard ciders and get silly.